We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Columbia under siege. Police shot in North Carolina. The FCC cracks down on privacy concerns, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin, and here's the news you need to know. Hours after Columbia University began suspending students who did not abandon their pro-Hamas encampment in the heart of campus, the agitators dialed up their demonstration by taking over an academic building, holding 3 janitors hostage for a time. Early Tuesday morning, hundreds of pro-Hamas protesters at Columbia's Manhattan campus took over Hamilton Hall, an academic building used by the dean and other senior offices. The unruly group gained access shortly before 1 a.m. and then began moving metal gates to barricade the doors, blocking entrances with wooden tables and chairs, and zip-tying doors shut, according to the student newspaper Columbia Spectator. Other footage showed the agitators in New York smashing windows, unfurling a Palestinian flag over a window, and chanting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," and "Palestine will live forever." Outside the facility, the pro-terrorist rebels, many of whom wore masks to hide their identities because they know they are breaking the law, locked arms in front of Hamilton Hall to form a human barricade. The students are demanding 3 things from the university: divest their financial support of Israel, become more transparent with the university's investments, and provide blanket amnesty to students who have taken part in the disruptive weeks-long demonstration. Protesters are now concerned that because they have been breaking the law, they may not be able to find jobs after graduation. A pro-Hamas group has filed a federal lawsuit against Columbia University, saying that anti-Israel protesters with the extremist group Students for Justice in Palestine are the ones being harassed on campus. The complaint comes as Jewish community leaders and Jewish students have spoken out to say they do not feel safe at the Ivy League school, with hundreds of protesters camping out in tents on the lawn, prompting university administrators to allow students to take their classes online for the rest of the year. But Palestine Legal, which filed the complaint Thursday with the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, said that 4 pro-Palestinian students and the student group Columbia Students for Justice in Palestine are the real victims. The group calls for an investigation into the university's handling of alleged discrimination and harassment against pro-Palestinian students by Columbia students, professors, and administrators under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Meanwhile, Columbia University was sued a second time by Jewish students who state the Ivy League school has permitted endemic anti-Semitism to flourish for decades until the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel unleashed yet another intolerable wave of anti-Israel abuse. The New York campus had been one of the worst centers of academic anti-Semitism in the U.S., but Jewish students have feared for their safety since the Hamas massacre of 1,200 Israelis, according to the complaint. The lawsuit, filed Wednesday by 5 students and 2 nonprofit groups, follows a similar case last week. 4 law enforcement officers were killed and 4 other officers were wounded by a suspect opening fire in a warrant-related gunfight in Charlotte, North Carolina on Monday afternoon. The shooting began when a U.S. Marshals task force attempted to serve a warrant for firearm possession by a convicted felon. During a Monday evening press briefing, authorities said the recipient of the warrant was the one who initially opened fire. That suspect, who was later identified as 39-year-old Terry Clark Hughes Jr., was killed in the shootout, police said. Hughes was also wanted for 2 counts of felony, fled to elude out of Lincoln County, North Carolina, according to Charlotte police. Police believe 2 shooters may have been involved. They said 2 persons of interest, a 17-year-old and a woman, were taken to the police station for further investigation. The Federal Communications Commission yesterday said it fined T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon $196 million for illegally sharing access to customers' location information without consent and without taking reasonable measures to protect that information against unauthorized disclosure. The fines relate to sharing of real-time location data that was revealed in 2018. The FCC proposed the fines in 2020 when the commission had a Republican majority and finalized them this week. All 3 major carriers vowed to appeal the fines after they were announced. The 3 carriers also said they discontinued the data sharing programs that the fines relate to. The fines are $80.1 million for T-Mobile, $57.3 million for AT&T, and $46.9 million for Verizon. T-Mobile is also on the hook for a $12.2 million fine issued to Sprint, which was bought by T-Mobile shortly after the penalties were proposed over 4 years ago. The U.S. has claimed that 5 units of the Israeli Defense Forces are responsible for individual incidents of gross violations of human rights, the State Department announced on Monday, though whether funding to the American ally could be cut over such abuses under the so-called Leahy laws still hangs in the balance. At a press briefing, State Department Principal Deputy Spokesman Vedant Patel told reporters that the human rights violations happened all before the October 7th attacks by Hamas militants on southern Israel, and more happened in Gaza. 4 of the units have effectively remediated, he said, while the U.S. continues in consultations and engagement with the government of Israel on the remaining unit. They have submitted additional information as it pertains to that unit, and we're continuing to have those conversations consistent with the memorandum of understanding that we have with the government of Israel that was entered into in 2021, he said. When conclusions are made under actions that fall under the auspices of the Foreign Assistance Act, we are required to consult with officials from the government of Israel, and that is ongoing. We are engaging with them in a process, and we will make an ultimate decision when it comes to that unit when that process is complete. A group of Republican senators have shared concerns over ideological bias at NPR, with the organization's controversial CEO, Catherine Maher, following high-profile criticism from former senior editor Yuri Berliner, who recently resigned from his role, citing her divisive views. We have deep concerns regarding the editorial direction under NPR's national leadership, wrote a group of Republicans in a letter on Monday, led by Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. In the letter, also signed by Republican Conference Chairman John Barrasso of Wyoming and Senators Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Roger Marshall of Kansas, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Dan Sullivan of Alaska, and Eric Schitt of Missouri, they stressed that NPR's national leadership has allowed and cultivated an environment where ideological bias not only creeps in, but takes center stage. The FDA wants to make sure that if someone is analyzing your blood and urine, it's worth your time. So the agency has finalized new regulations to govern the $10 billion lab test industry. Tests designed by laboratory have long gone without government scrutiny, but the FDA said the time has come to ensure these tests are accurate, though the new standards will be phased in over several years. There are currently about 80,000 medical tests available from approximately 1,200 labs per the FDA, and those will mostly be grandfathered in. Still, the industry has pushed back, saying the regulations will inhibit innovation and could sue to block the rules from taking effect. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.